Roswell, 1947. The original crash retrieval cover-up. On July 8, 1947, the Roswell Daily Record ran a headline that would echo through decades of secrecy. RAF captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell region. The press release from the Roswell Army Airfield announced recovery of a crashed disc, only for higher command to retract it hours later, substituting debris from a weather balloon displayed by Major Jesse Marcel in General Rogan's office. Eyewitnesses, including Marcel himself in later interviews, described lightweight metallic foil that regained shape after crumpling, beams inscribed with hieroglyphic-like symbols, and thin I-beams defying known metallurgy. Rancher Mac Brazel found the wreckage scattered over acres, with military personnel swiftly cordoning the site, threatening witnesses with dire consequences for speaking out. Declassified FBI memos from 1947 reference a flying disc recovered and flown to Wright Field in Ohio, while Air Force reports in the 1990s claimed Project Mogul balloon arrays for Soviet nuclear detection, yet no Mogul flight matched the date or debris description. Deathbed testimonies from base personnel like Walter Haut and Glenn Dennis detailed alien bodies in Hangar 84, small gray figures with large heads autopsied under secrecy, their craft stored at Hangar 18. The military's rapid cleanup and witness intimidation, Brazel's week-long detention, families warned of harm, established the template for UFO suppression. The incident's records vanished systematically. Original press releases disappeared from archives, flight logs redacted, and personnel reassigned. The 1994 Air Force report admitted the balloon explanation false, substituting crash test dummies from 1950s programs, despite timeline mismatch and dummy designs post-dating 1947. Declassified Majestic 12 documents, though disputed, describe Eisenhower briefing on Roswell retrieval, establishing interagency group for extraterrestrial technology, reverse engineering with black budget funding shielded from congressional oversight. Why the enduring denial? Roswell threatened national security paradigms, revealing potential technological superiority and non-human intelligence at Cold War's dawn, risking panic or Soviet exploitation. Independent researchers like Stanton Friedman uncovered suppressed witness statements, with radiation anomalies at the site persisting decades later. Had the crash been acknowledged openly, aerospace advancement might have accelerated from recovered materials. Memory metal prototypes echoing nitinol patents from 1960s allegedly derived from debris. Instead, records were purged, witnesses silenced, and the incident reframed as myth, establishing classification protocols, hiding subsequent encounters. Roswell remains the foundational case of vanished government records, its wreckage spirited away while truth scattered like foil in New Mexico winds, a forbidden incident experts refuse to validate, because its implications, extraterrestrial visitation confirmed, would collapse decades of carefully constructed denial. If this case grabbed you, tap subscribe and write mystery and your location in the comments so we can shout out your area. Rendlesham Forest, 1980. Britain's Roswell. Over Christmas 1980 in Suffolk, England, personnel at RAF Bentwaters, dual-based with USAF under NATO command, experienced multiple nights of UFO activity in Rendlesham Forest adjacent to the facility. Deputy Base Commander Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt led a team on December 26th recording audio as they encountered a glowing triangular craft with hieroglyphic markings, emitting beams probing the ground while animals panicked nearby. Halt's memo to the Ministry of Defense described the object moving through trees at impossible speeds, leaving radiation readings 10 times background levels and triangular depressions in frozen soil. Witnesses, including Sergeant Jim Peniston, touched the craft on the first night, receiving binary code downloads later transcribed as coordinates pointing to High Brazil, a legendary Atlantic island, and messages warning of humanity's future. Airman John Burroughs suffered health effects from proximity radiation, later compensated by the VA after records surfaced despite official denial. Base Commander Colonel Ted Conrad and others observed lights performing maneuvers exceeding known aircraft, with radar tracks from nearby stations mysteriously erased. The UK's 2002 declassified Condign report admitted unexplained plasma phenomena, but avoided Rendlesham specifics, while Halt's tape, leaked in 1983, captured real-time awe and fear. Ministry files released under FOIA show initial concern over nuclear weapons storage at Bentwaters, with briefings to high command halted after U.S. intervention. Witnesses face debriefings and non-disclosure threats, with Burroughs' medical records classified to hide exposure injuries. Why the transatlantic suppression? Rendlesham occurred at a nuclear base during Cold War tensions, revealing vulnerability to unknown craft capable of disabling weapons systems, as alleged in later Malmstrom and Minot incidents. Binary messages decoded in 2010 reference ancient sites and future exploration, implying intelligence communication suppressed to avoid theological or strategic panic. Independent radiation surveys confirmed beta-gamma spikes matching Holt's readings, yet official inquiries concluded misidentified lighthouse beams, despite timeline mismatches. Had records been preserved openly, NATO might have acknowledged non-human surveillance of nuclear arsenals, altering defense policy. Instead, files vanished from MOD archives, witnesses marginalized as mistaken, a forbidden encounter experts refuse to validate because its proximity to weapons of mass destruction demands admission of superior technology monitoring humanity's most dangerous capabilities. The Belgian UFO wave, 1989 to 1990, NATO's silent acknowledgement. Between November 1989 and April 1990, Belgium experienced one of the most documented UFO waves in history, with thousands of witnesses, including police officers, military personnel, and civilians, reporting massive triangular craft silently hovering and performing impossible maneuvers over populated areas. The objects, often described as black deltas with 3 bright lights at corners and a central red pulsing light, moved at low altitudes without sonic booms, accelerated instantaneously to hypersonic speeds, and descended vertically in ways defying known aerodynamics. On March 30th to 31, 1990, 2 F-16 jets from the Belgian Air Force scrambled under NATO protocols, achieving multiple radar locks on targets exhibiting velocity changes from 280 to 1,800 km per hour in seconds, with altitude drops of thousands of meters instantly, maneuvers generating G-forces lethal to human pilots. Ground radar at Semerzaki and Glans confirmed. Airborne tracks, with data shared across NATO channels, yet the Belgian Ministry of Defense's official report in 1992 concluded unidentified, while ruling out conventional aircraft, weather phenomena, or holograms. Chief of Operations Colonel Wilfried de Brouwer publicly stated, the objects demonstrated technology far beyond terrestrial capabilities, with no hostile intent observed. Audio recordings from F-16 cockpits captured pilots' astonishment as locks broke inexplicably, targets vanishing from scopes. Records vanish systematically. Initial radar tapes lost during transfer, pilot debriefings classified under NATO security, and witness statements redacted in public releases. SOBEPS, the Civilian Investigation Group, compiled over 2,000 reports with consistent descriptions, yet military cooperation ceased abruptly after international pressure. Declassified documents from 2007 reveal U.S. embassy cables expressing concern over public acknowledgement, with suggestions to attribute phenomena to secret stealth testing, despite Belgian denials of such programs. The wave's climax involved craft hovering over Brussels, observed by hundreds including gendarmerie, who photographed triangular forms, images later dismissed as lens flares despite multiple corroboration. Electromagnetic effects, car engines stalling, radios failing, matched global patterns, with medical reports of witnesses suffering radiation-like burns. The Belgian Air Force's unprecedented openness, releasing radar data and pilot testimony, contrasted with subsequent silence, as if higher command imposed gag orders post-investigation. Why the transatlantic suppression? The incidents occurred over nuclear storage sites and NATO headquarters vicinity, revealing surveillance of strategic assets by unknown craft capable of neutralizing defenses. Acceptance would admit inferiority in airspace control during Cold War endgame, risking alliance credibility. Independent analysis of surviving radar prints by physicists like Auguste Meessen confirmed non-physical acceleration, implying anti-gravity propulsion. Had records been preserved openly, Europe might have led global disclosure, forcing acknowledgement of non-human intelligence monitoring military capabilities. Instead, files fragmented across classified archives, witnesses marginalized, a forbidden wave experts reframe as mass hysteria because its documented superiority demands admission of technological paradigm beyond human reach. Vanishing government records ensuring Belgium's triangular nights remain unexplained in official history. The Washington, D.C. flap, 1952, Capitol invasion. In the sweltering summer of 1952, from July 12th to July 29th, the skies over Washington, D.C. became the stage for one of the most brazen and well-documented UFO incursions in American history, with multiple radar returns tracking unknown objects over restricted airspace above the White House, Capitol, and Pentagon. Air traffic controllers at Washington National Airport first detected 7 slow-moving targets on radar, hovering and then accelerating to over 7,000 mph, speeds impossible for contemporary aircraft, while ground observers, including pilots and civilians, reported glowing orbs performing right-angle turns and formations defying physics. Commercial pilots like Captain Casey Pierman of Capital Airlines confirmed visual sightings matching radar, describing lights maneuvering intelligently around their planes. F-94 Starfire jets scrambled from Andrews Air Force Base achieved brief visual contact, with pilots reporting objects surrounding their aircraft before vanishing at impossible velocities when pursued. Radar operators at multiple stations, national, Andrews, and military facilities tracked the intruders simultaneously, with returns solid and consistent, ruling out temperature inversions initially blamed. President Truman personally demanded briefings from the Air Force, with CIA Director Walter Bedell Smith convening emergency meetings, while Project Blue Book Chief Captain Edward Ruppelt later admitted the incidents represented the most puzzling cases in the program's files. Public pressure mounted after the Washington Post and other outlets ran headlines of "Saucers Swarm Over Capitol," prompting the largest Pentagon press conference since World War II on July 29th. Where Major General John Samford attributed events to weather phenomena, despite contradictory data from his own experts. Declassified documents reveal internal Air Force panic, memos discussing possible Soviet devices or interplanetary origin, with orders to intercept aggressively if objects returned. Radar tapes and pilot reports vanished from archives shortly after, with Freedom of Information Act requests yielding heavily redacted files claiming misplaced originals. The flap's records suffered systematic erasure. Blue Book files on Washington contain gaps, witness statements altered, and CIA's Robertson panel, in 1953, convened partly due to the incidents, recommended debunking policy to reduce public interest, classifying sensitive radar data under national security. Independent researchers like Ruppelt in his 1956 book described pressure to downplay, with key photographs and films confiscated from civilians never returned. Why the orchestrated disappearance? The incursions penetrated the most guarded airspace on Earth during Korean War tensions, exposing defense vulnerabilities to unknown intelligence capable of neutralizing pursuit. Acceptance would admit failure of radar and interception systems, risking Cold War morale while fueling speculation of non-human surveillance of nuclear decision centers. The CIA's Psychological Warfare Division allegedly amplified debunking to prevent hysteria, with media assets promoting inversion explanations, despite meteorological data showing clear conditions. Had records been preserved openly, 1952 might have forced disclosure, establishing intelligent control beyond human capability. Instead, files fragmented across classified vaults, witnesses retired in silence, a forbidden flap, vanishing government records to ensure the Capitol's skies remained officially empty of intruders that outmaneuvered America's best defenses in full view of the nation's power symbols. The Phoenix Lights. 1997, the mile-wide V-shaped craft. On the evening of March 13, 1997, thousands of residents across Arizona, from Prescott to Tucson, reported a massive V-shaped or boomerang-shaped object, silently gliding overhead at low altitude, blocking out stars as it passed. Witnesses described a craft spanning up to a mile wide, with 5 to 7 amber-orange lights along its leading edge. moving steadily without sound or aerodynamic disturbance, followed hours later by a second wave of high-altitude flares dropped by military aircraft. Governor Fife Symington, a former Air Force pilot, initially mocked reports at a press conference, dressing an aide in alien costume, only to admit in 2007 he personally witnessed the massive object, describing it as otherworldly and enormous, criticizing official dismissal as inadequate. Phoenix Air Traffic Control and Luke Air Force Base radar detected no anomalies for the primary event, yet civilian videos captured the lights in formation, with analysis by optical physicists like Bruce Maccabee ruling out conventional flares due to lack of parachute trails and consistent positioning. The Air Force attributed the second sighting to A-10 training flares from Operation Snowbird, but timing discrepancies and witness accounts of the mile-wide craft preceding flares by hours remain unexplained. Military records of flight operations that night vanished, or were heavily redacted in FOIA responses, with base logs showing no scheduled exercises matching descriptions. The incident's scale, over 10,000 reported sightings compiled by investigator Lynn Kitey, prompted immediate damage control. Symington's mockery, media framing as mass hysteria, and Air Force explanations ignoring primary testimonies. Declassified documents from 2000 reveal internal military concern over public perception near nuclear facilities, with suggestions to emphasize flares while classifying radar data. Independent analysis of videos shows lights maintaining rigid formation impossible for separate aircraft, with no heat signature on infrared attempts. Why the orchestrated minimization? The craft overflew a major metropolitan area and sensitive military zones during post-Cold War drawdown, exposing surveillance vulnerabilities to unknown technology capable of silent, massive intrusion. Symington's reversal, claiming fear of panic justified silence, echoes official protocols for unexplained phenomena. Had records been preserved openly, 1997 might have forced congressional hearings, establishing intelligent control beyond stealth programs. Instead, FOIA requests yield no records found for primary event radar, witness statements archived incompletely. A forbidden mass sighting vanishing government records to ensure the mile-wide visitor remains officially flares in Arizona skies. Its silent passage over Phoenix buried beneath layers of denial, protecting military admission of airspace sovereignty lost to the unknown. Kecksburg, 1965. The acorn-shaped crash. On December 9, 1965, a brilliant fireball streaked across the skies of 6 U.S. states and Canada, reported by thousands before impacting in a wooded area near Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. Witnesses described a metallic acorn-shaped object, approximately the size of a Volkswagen Beetle, with hieroglyphic-like markings around its baseband, partially buried in the soil and emitting low heat despite the crash. Local firefighters and residents approached the site first, observing the intact craft before military personnel from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base arrived in unmarked trucks, cordoning the area and ordering civilians away under threat of arrest. Eyewitness John Hayes and others reported seeing a flatbed truck removing a covered object toward the airfield, with NASA personnel allegedly involved in recovery. Initial news broadcasts referenced a possible meteor or satellite re-entry, but local radio shifted to denial after calls from authorities claiming nothing found. The Air Force's Project Blue Book file on Kecksburg, Case 10928, concluded a meteor despite trajectory inconsistencies and witness contradictions, with key documents redacted or missing in public releases. Independent investigations by Stan Gordon uncovered suppressed testimonies, military threatening families, searching homes for photographs, and confiscating film from reporters. One witness, a radio journalist, had his tape erased by officials en route to broadcast. Records vanish systematically. Blue Book files omit detailed interviews, military logs from nearby Lockbourne AFB show no launches matching recovery teams, and NASA, initially denying involvement, later admitted a team investigated possible Soviet Cosmos satellite debris, yet no matching launch aligned with the date. Declassified memos from 1965 reference object recovery in Pennsylvania, routed through Foreign Technology Division at Wright-Patterson, home to alleged alien craft storage. The craft's description, bronze-colored, seamless, with raised Egyptian-like symbols, matches no known satellite, while radiation readings taken by firefighters registered elevated but non-lethal levels. Witnesses faced lifelong harassment, with phone taps and visits discouraging testimony. The incident's timing amid Gemini missions fueled speculation of recovered non-human probe, with markings photographed by one civilian before seizure. Why the orchestrated erasure? Kecksburg occurred during escalating Vietnam War and space race, with any admission of uncontrolled object penetration risking public alarm over defense failures. The acorn shape echoes Nazi Bell experiments rumored captured post-war, or something more exotic suppressed, to protect reverse engineering programs. Independent metallurgists analyzing witness sketches note seamless construction beyond 1960s capabilities. Had records been preserved openly, 1965 might have exposed crash retrieval protocols predating Roswell revelations. Instead, files fragmented across classified archives, witnesses aged in silence, a forbidden crash vanishing government records to ensure the acorn from the sky remains officially a meteor in Pennsylvania woods, its hieroglyphs unread while truth lies buried deeper than the impact site. Tehran, 1976, Imperial Iranian Air Force interception. In the early hours of September 19, 1976, over Tehran, Iran, air traffic controllers at Mehrabad Airport detected an unknown object on radar, prompting civilian reports of a brilliant luminous craft hovering at high altitude. Two F-4 Phantom II jets from Shirosi Air Force Base scrambled under U.S.-supplied equipment, with pilot Lieutenant Yadi Nazari achieving radar lock at 25 nautical miles before his instruments and communications failed completely as he closed distance, the object accelerating away at impossible speeds. Second pilot Major Parviz Jafari pursued, firing an AIM-9 Sidewinder missile after visual confirmation of a diamond-shaped craft with pulsing colored lights, only for his weapons control panel to shut down entirely, restoring function only after retreating. Jafari described the object emitting smaller orbs, one approaching his jet, causing instrumentation and blackout, another descending to ground level, exploding, silently like a flare illuminating terrain. Ground witnesses, including tower personnel and civilians, reported the primary craft splitting into multiple entities before reuniting and departing. A Defense Intelligence Agency report, declassified in 1978, distributed to the White House, CIA, and Joint Chiefs, rated the incident outstanding with high credibility, noting radar confirmation from ground and airborne systems, electromagnetic effects disabling avionics, and physiological impacts on pilots including temporary vision impairment. Iranian military records, shared with U.S. attachés under SAVAK intelligence protocols, detailed the interception but vanished post-1979 revolution, with Islamic Republic authorities denying access citing national security. Declassified U.S. documents reveal follow-up inquiries from NSA and Air Force, yet complete Iranian radar tapes and pilot debriefings remain missing from archives. Jafari, promoted to general, testified at the 2007 National Press Club disclosure event, describing the craft as not from this world, with effects matching nuclear weapon EMP simulations. Why the bilateral suppression? The incident occurred amid Shah's regime propped by U.S. interests, with electromagnetic interference demonstrating vulnerability of advanced F-4 systems to unknown technology, risking exposure of defense gaps during Cold War proxy tensions. The DIA reports wide distribution, yet public silence suggests compartmentalized acknowledgement, with records fragmented across classified channels to prevent international incident. Independent analysis of surviving sketches shows cylindrical sub-objects with landing capability, while radiation surveys at alleged ground site yielded elevated readings dismissed as coincidence. Had records been preserved openly, 1976 might have forced joint U.S.-Iranian admission of non-human interference with military assets. Instead, files scattered post-revolution, witnesses relocated or silenced, a forbidden interception, vanishing government records to ensure Tehran's night skies remain officially empty of craft that outmaneuvered and disabled two frontline fighters. Its implications for global air superiority, buried beneath diplomatic denials and lost archives. Malmstrom, AFB 1967. Nuclear missiles disabled by UFO. On March 16, 1967, at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana, home to Minuteman nuclear ICBM silos, maintenance crews at Echo Flight reported a pulsating red oval-shaped object hovering over the site, coinciding with the simultaneous shutdown of 10 nuclear missiles, rendering them in no-go status with guidance and targeting systems offline. Captain Robert Salas, on duty at Oscar Flight a week later on March 24th, received frantic calls from security personnel describing a glowing red disk maneuvering low over the launch facility, followed immediately by another 10 warheads going offline identically, fault indicators showing no power to guidance systems despite intact electrical supply. Boeing investigators dispatched to troubleshoot found no mechanical explanation, with classified reports concluding external electromagnetic interference. Declassified Air Force documents from Project Blue Book and SAC headquarters reference the incidents obliquely as unexplained, with full technical logs redacted or missing from public archives. Salas and colleague Captain Robert Jameson testified to congressional-level briefings where superiors ordered silence, threatening court-martial for disclosure. Guards reported physical effects, burning eyes, headaches, and the object departing at high speed after disabling weapons, restoring function only after departure. Similar shutdowns occurred at mine at AFB in North Dakota during the same period, with radar tracking unknowns correlating to missile failures. Records vanished systematically. Boeing's final report, allegedly detailing no internal cause, remains classified under national security, with FOIA requests yielding heavily censored pages claiming equipment malfunction despite witness contradictions. Echo Flight Commander Captain Don Crawford confirmed the UFO correlation in later interviews, with launch officers sworn to secrecy under threat of career ruin. The incidents prompted SAC to implement hardened systems against EMP, yet official narratives attribute failures to power surges without addressing synchronized multi-silo events. Why the deep classification? Malmstrom housed nuclear forces capable of global annihilation, with UFO interference demonstrating vulnerability to unknown technology, neutralizing deterrence without trace, exposing Cold War mad doctrine as potentially ineffective. Declassified memos from 1967 show Curtis LeMay's concern over foreign devices, with suggestions of Soviet testing dismissed after intelligence ruled it impossible. Independent researchers like Robert Hastings compiled over 150 similar testimonies from missileers across decades, patterns suppressed to maintain public confidence in nuclear security. Had records been preserved openly, 1967 might have forced acknowledgement of non-human monitoring of weapons of mass destruction, altering disarmament talks and theology. Instead, files fragmented across black projects, witnesses aged under NDAs, a forbidden interference vanishing government records to ensure nuclear silos remain officially invulnerable, their brief helplessness in 1967 buried deeper than the missiles themselves. O'Hare International Airport, 2006, the saucer over the gate. On November 7, 2006, at approximately 4:15 p.m., a dozen United Airlines employees at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport, ground crew, pilots, and mechanics, witnessed a metallic saucer-shaped object, hovering motionless at about 1,500 feet, directly above Concourse C of the United Terminal for several minutes. The disk, estimated 20 to 30 feet in diameter, with no visible propulsion or markings, maintained perfect stability in clear daylight conditions before abruptly shooting upward through the overcast sky, punching a crisp circular hole in the clouds that persisted for minutes as witnesses watched in stunned silence. Radio transmissions captured ramp workers alerting supervisors, with one pilot in a queued aircraft reporting the object to tower control, receiving no response. The Federal Aviation Administration initially denied knowledge, spokesperson Elizabeth Isham Corey claiming no radar returns or reports, only to reverse after Chicago, Tribune FOIA requests revealed air traffic controllers had discussed the sighting internally, with one jokingly suggesting weather phenomenon, while others confirmed visual observation. FAA records requested under Freedom of Information were declared destroyed per routine policy for voice tapes after 15 days, despite the incident's high profile and multiple formal complaints from United personnel demanding investigation. The airline pressured employees to remain silent, with some facing disciplinary threats for discussing publicly. National Transportation Safety Board files contain no mention, while FAA hotspot reports, internal anomaly tracking, allegedly documented the event but remain classified or lost. Independent audio analysis of leaked tower recordings captures controllers acknowledging it's right over the gate, with radar data from nearby facilities showing brief primary return dismissed as artifact. Witnesses, including a ramp supervisor with decades of experience, described the object's departure as instantaneous vertical ascent without sonic boom or exhaust, leaving the cloud hole as physical evidence photographed by passengers, yet ignored officially. Why the rapid erasure? O'Hare is one of the world's busiest airports, with the object hovering over active gates during rush hour, exposing commercial aviation vulnerability to unknown craft capable of undetected penetration. The FAA's destroyed tapes claim mirrors patterns in military cases, preventing correlation with regional radar archives. Independent researchers like NARCAP's Richard Haynes compiled consistent testimonies with no discrepancies, yet official inquiries concluded weather inversion, despite clear skies and lack of temperature data supporting illusion. Had records been preserved openly, 2006 might have forced civilian aviation's acknowledgement of UAP risks, prompting international protocols. Instead, files vanished per policy. Witnesses retired under pressure, a forbidden saucer, vanishing government records to ensure America's busiest airspace remains officially free of intruders that hovered unchallenged above thousands of passengers. Its cloud-piercing exit, the only trace left in Chicago's overcast memory. Japan Airlines Flight 1628, 1986, the Alaskan Giant. On November 17, 1986, Japan Airlines Cargo Flight 1628, a Boeing 747 commanded by veteran pilot Captain Kenju Terauchi, encountered 3 unidentified objects over northeastern Alaska while en route from Paris to Tokyo. At 35,000 feet, the crew first observed 2 smaller craft approaching at high speed, illuminating the 747 with intense beams that heated the cockpit and caused physical discomfort. The objects, described as walnut-shaped with glowing nozzles, paced the aircraft for over 30 minutes, performing instantaneous maneuvers including 90-degree turns and sudden stops, before a massive mothership twice the size of an aircraft carrier appeared on radar, dwarfing the jumbo jet. FAA ground radar at Anchorage and military radar at Elmendorf AFB confirmed the primary target, with controllers tracking it correlating exactly to Terauchi's visual reports. The crew's drawn sketches showed structured craft with exhaust-like emissions, while onboard radar captured the objects. After the encounter, the 747 diverted to Anchorage, where FAA investigators interviewed the crew extensively, seizing radar tapes and flight recorder data. Captain Terauchi described the mothership as like a giant walnut with a central band of lights, estimating its size at over a mile based on radar scope. The FAA's John Callahan later revealed in 2000 disclosure testimony that CIA agents confiscated all data, radar printouts, voice tapes, and digital records during a Washington briefing, ordering participants never to discuss it, with one agent stating, "This event never happened. We were never here." Records vanished systematically. Initial FAA releases under FOIA yielded heavily redacted files claiming no anomaly, with radar tapes reused per policy despite the incident's significance. Callahan preserved copies shown at the National Press Club, confirming multiple radar corroboration and electromagnetic effects on the aircraft. Japanese authorities pressured JAL to ground Terauchi temporarily for health reasons, while U.S. media downplayed as ice crystals despite clear skies and crew's impeccable record. The incident's documentation suffered deliberate erasure. Military radar data from Elmendorf classified under NORAD protocols, with declassified portions omitting target details. Independent analysis of surviving tapes by Bruce Maccabee confirmed primary returns exceeding known aircraft performance, with acceleration implying non-inertial propulsion. Why the aggressive suppression? The encounter occurred over U.S. airspace during Reagan-era tensions, with a civilian airliner shadowed by massive craft tracked on military radar, exposing defense gaps to unknown intelligence capable of outmaneuvering interceptors. The CIA's involvement suggests higher classification beyond FAA jurisdiction, protecting reverse engineering programs, or avoiding public confirmation of non-human presence. Had records been preserved openly, 1986 might have forced international disclosure, with Jiao's professional crew providing unimpeachable testimony corroborated by ground systems. Instead, files scattered across black archives, witnesses marginalized as forbidden giant vanishing government records to ensure Alaska's frozen skies remain officially empty of the walnut-shaped behemoth that dwarfed a 747. Its silent escort of humanity's airways buried beneath layers of classification, ensuring the truth never lands in public view.